Have you ever had a nickname you didn't like that stuck? No matter how many times you told someone you didn't like the nickname, they just kept calling you it. It's frustrating, right? Now, think about your gender. Whether you think of yourself as a man or a woman, as he or she, imagine if someone kept referring to you by the opposite pronouns. At first, it would just be slightly annoying, but what if they kept doing it? You kept asking them over and over not to, and they just don't listen, and they don't care. This is the experience that a lot of transgender and non-binary youth deal with today. This is why it's important to learn about pronouns and gender identity. It's important to respect pronouns because it's about respecting someone else's identity. It's very upsetting to have your identity invalidated. For high schoolers who are still trying to figure out their identity, it's even more damaging. 50% of transgender and non-binary youth surveyed in 2021 reported seriously considering suicide. 20% reported having attempted suicide. 59.1% of LGBTQ students surveyed in 2019 said they felt unsafe at school because of their sexual orientation, 42.5% because of their gender expression, and 37.4% because of their gender. Students who were being victimized based on their gender expression were more likely to have lower GPAs, lower self-esteem, and higher levels of depression than students who weren't being victimized. Clearly, the discrimination against transgender youth is dangerous to their mental health. However, as administrators and teachers, you can help protect your students from this kind of damaging discrimination by cultivating a safe environment. It's important to listen to students when they want to be called different pronouns. By helping validate their identity, you can reduce the likelihood of depression and suicide and help create a safer environment for your students. Here are some tips that might be helpful regarding current definitions of gender and pronouns. Gender was previously defined as binary, just men and women. Now it's commonly understood to be a spectrum, much like sexuality. The gender spectrum makes room for more diverse gender identities. Gender identity is how someone identifies their own gender. Cisgender is a term for someone who identifies as the gender they were assigned at birth, or in other words, their biological sex and gender identity match. Transgender is an umbrella term for someone whose gender identity is different from the gender they were assigned at birth, or their biological sex. The term transgender is commonly used to refer to people who were assigned male at birth and then grew up to instead identify as a woman, or people who were assigned female at birth and then grew up to identify as a man. However, there are a number of other gender identities that fall under the trans umbrella. Non-binary is a general term for gender identities that fall outside of the male and female binary. And some examples include agender, genderqueer, gender fluid, bigender, demigenders, and many more. So now let's talk briefly about gender expression. Gender expression is a person's behavior, mannerisms, interests, and appearance that are associated with gender in a particular cultural context, specifically within the categories of femininity and masculinity. These categories rely on stereotypes about gender. Now, it's important to note that gender expression and gender identity are very different and don't always match up. For example, a cisgender woman may dress in pants and more masculine clothing, even though she identifies as a woman. Similarly, a cisgender man may dress or behave in a very feminine manner, but that doesn't make him any less a man. And someone may express themselves in a feminine manner but identify as non-binary and go by they, them pronouns. And now, a quick note about pronouns. The pronoun vocabulary has expanded along with our understanding of gender, including most prevalently the choice of many non-binary people to use they, them pronouns. So, what's up with this they pronoun? Many non-binary people choose to use they, them pronouns because they don't have gender identities that align with masculine or feminine pronouns, so the gender-neutral they, them feels more right. However, this might not be the case for all non-binary people. Some might feel that it captures both masculine and feminine traits. Gender identity is very personal, and so it varies from person to person. They/them pronouns evolved from being used to refer to groups of people to now also being used as a gender-neutral singular pronoun. It's somewhat similar to how the words Latino and Latina have now the gender-neutral equivalent, Latinx. Language is constantly evolving, and they/them pronouns are part of our evolving language. We have been taught from a very young age to view everyone as either a man or a woman. So it can sometimes be challenging to see the expanse of gender identities. For example, you may see a student who looks like they are a girl, maybe because of how they dress, or maybe they have a more feminine facial structure. But if they say they are not a girl, then they are not a girl. And remember, gender expression does not equal gender identity. So what do you do if you mess up someone's pronouns? My advice is simply give a quick apology and rephrase what you said using the right pronouns. If you are having trouble with a student's pronouns, use their name instead. If the student you're talking to gets upset, it can be helpful to remember how frustrating it can be to hear yourself being called by a name or a nickname that you don't like. The end goal is to make your students feel safe in your classroom and school. One important way to do this is by respecting your students' pronouns and name changes, but there are many other ways you can help. You can offer your classroom as a safe space for your students and let them know that they can talk to you if they need help. You can use inclusive language when addressing groups of students, avoiding "hey guys and gals" or "ladies and gentlemen," but maybe trying "hello students" or "welcome everyone." One of my personal favorites is "hi guys and gals and non-binary pals." If you overhear someone else misgendering someone, you can gently correct them and remind them of the person's correct pronouns. But in conclusion, when students feel unsafe in school, they are adversely affected. Depression rates rise, grades drop, and the overall well-being of the students decreases. Students spend an average of 6.5 hours in school each day, and if they feel unsafe for that time, it's going to have a negative effect on them. By respecting your students' identities, you can help make sure they feel safe to be themselves. You can help ensure that your school is a welcoming, inclusive place for everyone. Thank you.